Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Arctic Pulper Show. I am your host, Arctic Ghost, and today I'm going to be bringing you the new Murasa Tron. So, back when I made my first Murasa Tron videos, it was with the Peregrine Drake combo. Of course, that was a long time ago. Peregrine Drake is long dead. And now, what Murasa Tron has turned into is really just a control deck that doesn't really rely on getting Tron quickly. It's really just a blue-red control deck similar to Cloudpost from back in the day, but you rely on Tron eventually assembled to use your bigger spells with like Capsize, Rolling Thunder, and things like that. So let's just go through piece by piece. There's not much else to really see. First up are the counter spells, which you have two Prohibit. This is the easiest counter spell to use. You can't really use counter spell because of it costing double blue, and I apologize for the Cobras in the background. They're quite angry right now. So Prohibit only costing one in a blue, one generic in a blue, makes it, I think, the perfect spell for this type of deck. Basically, it counters almost everything you want in the format. It counters most of the creatures, it counters most of the counter spells, it counters most of the burn spells, what have you. Well, you can also pay 4 mana, and then it can basically counter almost everything in the format that you would give a crap about. Sure, it doesn't counter Spire Golem, it doesn't counter Mirror Enforcer, but you have other spells to deal with those cards. Then you have 1 Remove Soul, just a 2 mana basic, just counter spell against what you really care about. And then 1 Condescend. Now, most decks will play 2 Condescend, but I have a love-hate relationship with Condescend. It's really, really good when it's good, and then it's really, really bad when it's bad. Most of the time, I always happen to draw it whenever it's just 1 blue Scry 2. And I hate that. But I do play 1 on the off chance that maybe it puts the Fear of God in my opponent. It just makes them have to play around more than 1 later in the game. It's still pretty good with Tron up, so I chose to play 1. That's just my opinion. Next up are the creatures. You have 1 Seagate Oracle just to hold down the fort. He's not that impressive in this deck, as he would be, in like blue-black flicker or mono-blue control, things like that, where he's an actual win condition. Here, he's more of just an early block. The other thing is he kind of screws up Haunted Fengraphs for the other creatures. You have Mole Drifter, I shouldn't really have to explain that one. And then you have Mnemonic Wall. Now, Mnemonic Wall obviously is very good. Why am I explaining this? Well, you do have the Ghostly Flicker combo with Mnemonic Wall. So, you could draw infinite cards, you could technically gain infinite life, you could still draw more cards. And with 2 of them out, you basically do actually win the game. Once you have both your Mnemonic Walls and the Ghostly Flicker, that's it. You can basically win the game because you can pretty much just get back Ghostly Flicker and Mnemonic Wall, and you can keep on getting back all of your key spells. You can Moment's Peace infinitely, you can Rolling Thunder a bunch of times, you can Lightning Bolt them out like the old Peregrine Drake deck did. The works. I will tell you, though, I have basically just won games by just going Mole Drifter. That's basically it. Some people run Ulamog's Crusher. I am not against that. It's just I'd rather be more controlling, and Ulamog's Crusher doesn't always do the job. Crazy, I know, but in a deck like this where you're not built to get Tron so quickly, I don't like it very much, but that's just me. Then you have your burn package. You have 1 Electrickery against all, the token decks, Delver, etc. 1 Electrostatic Bolt. You have a flexible type of shock because it also kills Mirror Enforcer and Spire Golem, but it also kills almost everything else that Lightning Bolt does. You have 1 Lightning Bolt just because. You have 4 Flame Slash because they are literally the best removal spell you can have. And you have 1 Twin Bolt to kind of act like an Electrickery, but also you could just shock a creature if you need to, or it can go to the opponent's face. It's kind of another way to win when you have Lightning Bolt. And then, of course, Rolling Thunder is, well, it's Rolling Thunder. It's what Tron loves to do. As far as the, I showed you the combo with Ghostly Flicker. The draw spells, you have 1 Think Twice, just 5 mana, draw 2 cards. It also combos with Forbidden Alchemy. Now, I was running compulsive research for a long time, and I ran Forbidden Alchemy for a long time as well. I have found that Forbidden Alchemy, I believe, is better in this deck. 1 is an instant, so it allows you to play other spells if you need to. 2, it can be flashbacked, and 3, it's really good at digging towards Tron, and you really need to do that. Plus, even if you put certain spells in the grave, it's not that bad. You could put in the grave mystical teachings. You could put Ghostly Flicker in the grave if you need to, because you don't need it. You could put Condescend in the grave later if you need to. It really isn't all that bad. And once you have Tron going, you don't need all that much more mana. You know, you'll need color mana more. So, if you're Forbidden Alchemy into, like, 2 lands and 2 good spells, chances are one of those spells can be thrown away, and those 2 lands, you probably won't need them. And then, to round it out, the green spells, you have 2 Pulse of Murasa to get back your creatures, or your Tron pieces if they Molten Rain them, and you have 1 Moment's Piece as a Fog. Down here at the artifacts, you have, of course, Prophetic Prisms, because you do need help with colors. You have Izzet Signet and Simic Signet to help you with colors and also to accelerate you, which I think is slightly better than Prismatic Strands, personally. And you have Expedition Map, just a couple of them to go get either the Haunted Fengraf you need, the Shimmering Grotto, maybe some colored lands, or, more importantly, your Tron lands. Although you are decked, I'm sorry for the Cobras, can you please keep it down? God, man. So, although this deck is really a blue-red control deck at heart, you're going to have a lot of trouble winning games without Urza's Tower. Because you're going to run into drawing all these expensive spells that take advantage of mana, like Capsize, like Teachings, like Demonic Wall, like Condescend, like Rolling Thunder. And if you don't have Tron going, you're going to find yourself having a bunch of dead cards in your hand because they're not all that useful. I used to play 3, but when I went back to Forbidden Alchemy, didn't need 3, so I was able to take out Expedition Map. So that's the main deck. I mean, there really is no stock list. Everybody plays either more counterspells, more removal, some play more creatures. You know, some don't play the Signets, and some play Prismatic Strands, some play 4 Expedition Maps, some play Chromatic Stars. You can't really go wrong with building this type of Tron list. You can't really go wrong. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's all a matter of your playstyle and what you think the meta will be. Do you think you'll need more counter spells because you'll be up against Tron decks or counter decks more? You go with more counter spells. If you think you're going to face a bunch of aggro decks, go with a bunch more removal. If you think you're going to face a good mix, go with a good mix of removal and counter spells and creatures. You really can't go wrong. You just have to make sure you're not spreading yourself too thin on everything. You know, that's the big thing. Onto the sideboard, you have 1 Dispel. You only need 1. You have 2 Forbidden Alchemies and 2 Mystical Teachings to find it. 3 Hydroblast against red decks. 1 Echoing Truth against token decks or goblins. You know, things like that. I think it's better than Echoing Decay because getting black in this deck is actually quite hard. So I decided to go with that one. Also because it can bounce permanents, so it can bounce, you know, like enchantments against boggles and crap like that. Diabolic Edict. Just 1 Edict effect. This might change, but it's okay against like Gurmag Angler and things of that nature. 1 Crypt Incursion against aggro decks to be like a big gain life card. You know, so I know that some graveyard decks I've seen pop up in Toro Practice Room, and a couple of them have popped up in the leagues from what I've heard, so I decided to go with Crypt Incursion. I saw a couple of other people using this card. 3 Pyroblast against the other control decks, of course. 2 Ancient Grudge against Affinity. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of Ancient Grudge, because the big problem creatures and cards are the colored spells, like Tog, Carapace Forger, things like that. But, considering the fact that Ancient Grudge can kill Mirror Enforcer, and then you can use Flame Slash to kill Carapace Forger, or you can use this to color screw them, it helps out a lot. The other thing is you can also use it against the Mirror to cut them off colors. Because if you notice, when you're getting Tron, you don't have a lot of colors to work with. So, Ancient Grudge, I think, is actually more flexible than it used to be, in my opinion. But there's a chance that things like Shattering Spree, you know, could be better. Gorilla Shaman is not that good in this deck because you can never really go it early reliably. To be able to do that, you'd have to add a ton more red sources, and you can't really afford to. Moving on, you have Moment's Peace, just a 2nd Fog, of course. I never noticed the woman at the bottom of the tree before in all these years. Wow. I really, really like this picture. I gotta get it painted one day. Anyway, and then 2 Serene Heart against Boggles. Now, Boggles has kind of been falling by the wayside, so there's a chance that Serene Heart could be changed to something else. as you notice, there is no, what's the name? Land destruction in my sideboard. There are no land destruction spells. Why did I not go with land destruction spells? Well, the thing about that is, in a Tron mirror, because there's so little win conditions, one person having Tron and the other person not having Tron isn't going to matter all that much. Unless you are the big, heavy counter version with multiple prohibits, multiple condescends, multiple negates, and things like that, then yes, because you can fight over things like Capsize and Rolling Thunder and Mnemonic Wall plus Ghostly Flicker a lot. Sure. Then I can understand if you're using Land Destruction. But in this deck, you have 2 Pulse Murasa. You're a control deck. You don't really need Tron to function all that much in the early game. You really only need it for like the mid game to the late game. So I'm trying not to go with Land Destruction. I'm just trying to be better against other decks. Plus, the other thing is, like I've said, and I've said this multiple times, there's one thing that Tron has always done best in every iteration Tron has been in Magic. Whether it was in Standard, I don't remember all that far back, but in Modern, if it was ever in Legacy, if in Pauper, if it was ever in any format, the number one thing that Tron is good at is getting Tron assembled. So I think going the land destruction route against Tron when you're not an aggro deck or you don't have a quick clock, I don't think it's really worth it. Unless you want to overload with like 5 or 6 Stone Rain effects, I don't know if it's going to get you very far. Now that is just my personal opinion. That is from my personal testing, over the months and over a couple of years of playing Pauper. That is just from my personal outlook. No, I do not claim to be an expert. I could easily be wrong. It sounds like the Cobras have calmed down since they see I'm not giving them attention. So fighting Tron in Pauper is very tricky because, of course, in Modern, not only do you have faster decks, but you have things like Sowing Salt and Blood Moon and things of that nature. In Pauper, you have to attack it with cards like Stone Rain and Molten Rain. Cards that also will take up your whole turn because they cost 3 mana. That's a lot of mana when you're trying to do other things as well. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure in one of these 2 test games I'll lose to Molten Rain and I'll just be like, alright, forget what I think. But either way, like I said, that's the core of the deck. We're going to take this into a couple test games, see how the deck works, see how it functions, and see if it is actually good enough to your liking and to see how it's played. So, till then, I'll see you in a little bit, and thanks for watching.